Oh, see, that's on the screen now. Looks like we're good. Yes, Dante? Okay, everyone, we're live for the Q&A to start off the meeting. Bruce?
Hello, good morning, everybody. I'm Bruce Brown. I think all of you, or most of you, know me by now. And without further ado, who has questions? Anybody? Yes.
There was I think Roy Wagner used to do that, but I think he stopped it.
The second year they changed the numbering, but my question is about the app. It's working on my iPhone 10, it's not working on my wife's iPhone 5. So I was wondering.
It's working on your iPhone 10, but not working on your wife's iPhone 10? 5. What is the version of iOS on those two phones? It's the latest one on both of them?
The iPhone 5 only gets 10.
I would guess that's the reason that it's...
That's my guess.
I don't know that particular situation, but that's most likely the reason. There's really not much you can do if that's the case other than, you know, upgrade your phone, get a new phone, a newer phone. So if that's the reason, then I don't know it for sure, but if I had to pick one thing, that's what I'd pick. So sorry to be the bearer of bad news. But on the other hand, maybe it's a good excuse for her to get a new phone. Okay, questions, comments, suggestions? Everybody's computers and phones and iPads are all working perfectly, right?
No.
No, okay. You have a question?
No. Too many questions.
I have one, if nobody, and I don't know if you've answered, I don't know. It's not on, is it on? It's for the podcast. Oh, okay. I don't know if you've already answered this in the past. This is my first meeting in a long years and years. But I want to know the best way to back up thousands and thousands of photographs to the cloud and with the catalog if you're using Lightroom.
Ooh.
Because if not, it's just thousands and thousands of photographs.
Wow, that's a lot. And you want to do it to the cloud, right? And you're willing, I hope, to pay for the storage space in the cloud because, you know, that much is...
If you have Prime on Amazon, it's unlimited for the, you have to pay for the catalog, but it's like $1 a month. It's not.
Yeah, because...
But the pictures are unlimited and full size.
Okay, well, that's one way to do it. I don't...
I don't know how to get them there.
Well, getting them there is going to be challenging because it's going to take time. And I hope you're on a nice, fast internet connection like Verizon Fios or a fast cable connection of some sort. But even at that, it will probably take quite a bit of time. How much? It's hard to say. Depends on...
Can't I do it piecemeal?
You probably can if you can keep track of what's been done or what hasn't. If you're doing it manually by dragging and dropping from something that's on your local hard drive to a folder that lives in the cloud that's on your that's visible in the Finder and I don't know, I haven't used the Amazon service, so I don't know if that's how it works, but that's how, for example, Dropbox would work. You would open the Dropbox folder, which looks like any other folder on your desktop, but it actually, the contents actually live in your Dropbox account in the cloud. So when you drag something that's not in the cloud, that's on your local drive from a folder or your desktop into the Dropbox folder, it copies it, and it will take however long it takes. Dropbox is pretty smart about, you know, how it handles, you know, it won't take up all your processor time. It won't bog down your computer, but it will take a while. But if left to its own device, it will eventually get done. Now, if Amazon works the same way, and I don't know, then you should be okay, I think. But,
my question, do you use Lightroom?
yeah.
Okay, so.
I don't use Lightroom, but go ahead.
Well, in my Lightroom catalog,
Okay.
over the years, I have lots and lots of folders. I have big folders with little folders inside and so forth, and I'd like to have it stay like that. Is
Sure.
it going to stay like that if I send it like that? And then have the catalog someplace in the file?
Okay, so you're talking about folders that are inside the application, the Lightroom app on your Mac,
Right.
not a Finder folder in this case.
Correct.
Okay, so that depends very much on the app, in this case, Lightroom. And I don't know, but there should be a way to export stuff out of Lightroom. Look on the File menu for...
Well, I can export it as a catalog, but then that's going to take all 50,000 pictures that I have, and that's going to
Well,
take a few days.
if it okay, when you export it as a catalog, is that the catalog and the contents or just the catalog?
I believe it's the content and the catalog.
Okay,
when
so-
you export as a catalog.
Yeah, so
No, what?
I don't know.
I know, but I mean, for
This
that many pictures.
is a little bit specialized for me, and it sounds, the good news is it sounds like a problem that other people have probably had and that has been solved.
I have a question for you. You want to keep a copy locally, or you just want to back up like a history?
In other words, are you backing them up or are you moving where you store them?
I have a RAID that I've been backing them up to, and somehow, and then I put another RAID to back up the first RAID, thinking I then had it all covered. And somehow, the RAID setting changed from 1 to 0, and it's just been throwing pictures wherever it pleases instead of this one backing up that one, and me thinking I had everything.
Okay.
And sometimes they disconnect themselves. So I'm thinking they're getting ready to fail me, and I'm panicking that I haven't.
But
And you mentioned you want to use Amazon services, right?
Well,
Okay.
I already paid for it.
S3 is for storage, right? And then S3 is for the things that you want to access frequently. And they have another called Glacier that is for something that you want to freeze in time. And it's cheaper in that way. But the best way to connect your computer or wherever archives you have in any folder and synchronize that with Amazon is another program called Transmit. You subscribe to and you say, hey, Transmit, synchronize this folder with wherever it is in the cloud. And that thing's going to take time, but upload a copy, everything there. And you can synchronize in the session uploading or downloading.
Okay.
And you can just pick the different folders and create your replica folder in the cloud, in Amazon. And when it's there, you can go in the browser, your Amazon account says, okay, I want to put this on Glacier, like something that is compressed and is cheaper. Because if you don't access that frequently, just a copy, it's no point to pay more to have, like
Full
a
size.
direct copy accessible.
Right.
You can freeze it. And then in that way, you can, make versions or copies of the same thing. And I think it's a simple way. go and find for Transit that is an FTP line of an app to synchronize data, and they already have a set to connect S3 services from Amazon. And you just put your credentials and then check how you synchronize that in just a button. This is my folder here. This is my virtual folder in the cloud, and they take care of the synchronization.
Thank you very much.
So how much data, do you know how much data roughly your entire photo library takes up? How much space? You know, is it, you don't know, okay, so, but it's, I'm sure it's quite a chunk,
Right.
a big amount, so.
Right. I take big pictures, and then I do stuff to them, and they get bigger.
You shoot it raw and then save it that way?
Exactly.
Sure, and then that's,
And you make layers, and then you've got a
that's really the,
tip.
yeah, that's really the best way to do it, and then if you edit them, you save all the stuff as well as the original and everything,
Right.
and
That's
that,
why I want to save it as a catalog, because
Right.
then it saves all those
Right.
steps that I've taken, and I just want it in case these drives fail, which I'm thinking they're going to do because they're acting strangely. I don't want to be without all those
Right.
pictures.
yeah, and I can't even begin to estimate how long it's going to take for them to all upload the first time,
Right.
because I don't know how big it is or what the data rates is or anything. There's a lot of variables. But it sounds to me like however long that takes, you should wait till it's done and then investigate. You know, just leave the RAID units alone as best you can until after you get it all in the cloud, and then start investigating, because probably best not to tinker or change anything until you're sure you've got everything somewhere else, at least one whole other copy somewhere. And, you know, somebody who is actually a photo person said that if you don't have at least 3 copies of a file, the original and 2 copies, you don't have that file. You know, and yeah, and but it's true not just of pictures, but of anything
Right.
that you don't have, you can't easily get somewhere else. If it's an iTunes song, you can probably download it if you paid for it or got it on iTunes. But if it's something, original music composition you saved, you better have 3 copies according to this guy's thing, you know, the original and 2 other copies, whether they're local backups, cloud, or a mixture. You need 3 altogether to be really
I
safe.
have so many pictures that putting it on my hard drive of my computer didn't make sense. It would just plug it up.
So,
that's why I went
yeah.
with the RAID, thinking
Right.
it was backing it up, and then I had one of those drives fail. Scared me. Got a new drive in there, and then I got another RAID. So I thought I had 4 copies
So,
of it.
and just a second, Gabe. Okay, so if you get this all, let's assume you get it all safely into the cloud at some point. Now you have 2 known or believed to be good copies, the ones on your hard drive and the ones in the cloud. So that's still only 2,
Yeah.
but at least if you're pretty sure everything's okay, and let's assume your hard drive hasn't crashed or failed, then you can go working toward the 3rd one and work on the RAIDs or throw them out get rid of them and buy a new one or whatever.
Should I be able to wipe the RAIDs and download them from the cloud if I put them up there and then get the setting right on the RAID?
You could, but why would you want to download them, which is slower than just copy them from the local hard drive to the RAIDs?
I don't have them on a local hard drive. The RAID is where they go originally.
Okay, that's different. So the RAID is, you have your photo album. So you have, let me get this straight. So you have Lightroom, and you have it set so that your editing location is on one or both RAIDs, not on the local hard drive. Okay, I made an assumption that it was on your hard drive, which turns out not to be valid. Okay, Gabe, you had a comment?
Copy telling you that you have a problem that may get worse very fast.
I think he's got a
I
great
just did that. I got a 4 terabyte drive that I'm gonna.
Big hard
But
drives.
then I want my second.
These days, big hard drives are relatively cheap.
So save them someplace brand new, predictable first,
Right.
and then explore other strategies.
I agree. Thank you.
That's an excellent idea. In fact,
See if you can log into the Wi-Fi using that. It sometimes requires certificate permission.
get to a safe condition that much sooner, which is where you want to be.
Exactly.
And then you could even, if you wanted to, eject and disconnect that drive so you got everything nice and safe where the computer can't get its little mitts on it and somehow mess things up, you know, something goes wrong.
Who set up the RAID for you? I mean, RAID typically has multiple drives for redundancy, and you should be able to hot swap. You should be able to take one drive out of a RAID array, put it back in, and the RAID mechanism should automatically populate that new drive.
Right.
So somebody who understands RAID drives might be able to get your RAID fully back in service. But the first step is make a reliable copy you understand, and then solve the problems.
Right. And
Well, I'm afraid an unreliable person set it up, me. And I know when I had the first one, I had it set at 1 because I read all about how to do that. And then somehow they got it set at 0.
Well, when you're using the word somehow on your computer technology, that's a really bad situation. So terabyte drive backup first.
are these Drobo brand or some other brand? Or
Yeah, I think this is, let's see.
Lassier? Okay. Well, I don't know if it matters, but so, okay. But they're all similar in the way they work and how you set them up, although the details of setup are probably different from one brand to another, you know, so. Okay. Oh. All right. Any other comments, questions? Yeah. Yeah.
On the cell phone, recently I keep on receiving on the cell phone, on the iPhone, that I get many messages, like 70 messages and text, and I just ignore them. Is that a safe thing to do? Usually, just
You get what kind of text? Junk?
the message is I get 70 text messages, one message, and then I just go and delete it from my message. I don't. I only on this on iPhone, and I do not have that on my iMac. So I safely assume those are spam. Is that safe thing to do?
Was there a question in there somewhere? So you're getting a.
I just ignore the warnings.
Oh.
I can have lots of texts and messages from the message
App.
icon.
From the message app or from.
From the message. I didn't get the app, but it comes with the cell phone. The message from the message. It usually just pop up. You know?
Is it telling what is it telling you? Is it saying there are too many, or that there's not enough space, or?
No, just inform me. Just inform me that I have let's say, typically 70,
Oh.
70 texts and 2 messages.
And
I just think, I just.
and this
if I
is
open up, I don't recognize anything.
this is a problem because you don't know where they came.
I just ignore them. That's safe practice. Does anybody else receive lots of warnings from text? That's unique in my case.
I don't know. Anyone have a suggestion?
No.
What?
My question is just happened to me or happened to everybody? And the second question is, my practice of ignoring them, just like I receive telephone calls, I just ignore them, and
I mean, if they're in the Messages app, ignoring them. Are these text messages, or are they just messages on the screen that come in, that you see?
It just says I have 70 texts.
70 texts
Yeah.
at a time, and then you, what do? Do you read them all, or delete?
I just
Ignore them.
delete them. Yeah,
And then it happens again.
just
Well, I don't know. Have you tried to look into where they're all coming from or anything? Are you getting spam text messages? Because you can get junk
that's why I
messages.
don't open them. I don't want to
Well,
open them. So
but
it's like a
well,
telephone.
if you, yeah, but on a text, if you do, or even actually without opening it, you can block the sender. And of course, they can change to a different sending address, and then they won't be blocked anymore. But if they keep sending from the same address, if you once block them, you won't get any more messages from that person.
And that's a question to follow up with Mike Wish when he talks about
Right.
spam.
Right.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, that would play into that
It's already
very well. But
already informative. So it's not usual. It's
Yeah.
not everybody.
so
That
if a message comes in as a text message in the Messages app, and you open the Messages app, then you can go in there and block that message or the sender of the message, so you won't get any more from them. But if there's 70 messages and they're all from different people or different sending addresses, you would have to block each one individually. But maybe once you went to the trouble of doing that the first time, maybe that would get rid of them, or at least get rid of a significant number, because they may be address. I don't know if it's likely they're coming from the same address or all different, but you know, that's the only thing
I
I
try
can.
to ignore them. Like
Yeah.
my phone calls, like I just refuse to
Yeah.
answer them at all,
Right.
So I we the same
Yeah.
practice.
Right. There's no. I don't think there's anything in email. We have a junk mail or
Right.
spam folder in most programs. There seems to be nothing similar in the world of text messages, at least in the Apple thing. All you can do is block it or delete it or both, but there's no filter to filter out junk other than blocking the sender. So that's the only.
Text stop. Most of them say text stop if you don't want them to come anymore.
Well, yeah, that's
But I want to receive important text.
that's
No, but
right.
it's individual.
That's
So open the one that got sent, and it'll say at the bottom, text stop, and we won't send them anymore.
text the word stop to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or whatever.
It just says text the word stop,
That's
and you don't have to.
Only
do
works
anything else.
for the good guys. That's just like when you get email from Sears. Let's assume they're a good guy. And if it says at the bottom of the Sears message, click here to not, to stop receiving these, that will usually work, provided it really came from Sears and wasn't some kind of phishing email or something. It's similar with text messages, provided that's a good guy. If it's a good guy and you text stop, it should stop.
Well, when you open
But-
it, you'll be able to see who it came from.
Yeah,
If it
right.
comes from
Too many of them.
Right.
See that, like the telephone calls,
I know.
There's too many of them.
Right.
I just
But if you block them,
ignore them.
assuming you never want to hear from that person, blocking is better in a sense because you know you're never going to hear from them again. If you just text stop and they're not a good guy, you might still get. In fact, you might even get yourself on lists of for additional people. You might even get more text messages. That's the way it works sometimes with email. So, okay, any other questions, comments? Yes, sir. This is going to be a challenge for me to hear you way back there, but.
Well, it's on the West Coast.
Oh.
He moved.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Okay. And Brent, is he?
Huh?
Brent Malcolm.
Brent isn't well these days. He had some health setbacks and is trying to recover.
I didn't hear that.
Yeah, Lawrence is actually in the YouTube chat for the YouTube live of this,
Okay.
saying, repeat the questions, the sound is bad.
Yeah.
I mean, he tries to help.
Yeah,
He really
right.
tries to help.
No, I'm just trying to figure out how this is, why it's set up this way. But go.
I never know what they're doing behind the scenes, and then something happens that I have to pull the thread to find out. Anyway, we had a little problem, and I checked with them, and I now get mail to my iMac delivered to me from Comcast's mail server. Okay, I'm okay with that, except my iPhone doesn't get any mail from Comcast. So, what are the commands I have to enter into the iPhone to get the mail delivered from Comcast to the iPhone?
Well, first of all, I'm questioning why you're putting this extra step in there in the first place. Why is it? It's okay if your ISP is Comcast, but you don't have to go through their mail system to get mail from another email provider, such as Apple, for example. It can just come in to your mail app or whatever program you're using for mail.
This goes back a long time. I used to do that. And then suddenly I woke up one day and found out that suddenly Comcast was taking, instead of just giving me the usual stuff, whatever it is, the TV, now I get my mail via them.
Well, do you have a Comcast email account in addition to your Apple account?
No, it's there. I mean, if I want to know what the originals look like, I could call.
Well, okay, well, I'm just saying, do you use only the one Apple mail address for most or all of your email? Okay, so you really don't need Comcast other than maybe as your ISP or something. So I would change the settings so Comcast is out of the picture as far as the email part of it is concerned. I don't think I can go into that level of detail this morning on how to do that, but you could come into one of the Clubhouse Saturdays and we could help you, or one of the Apple stores could probably help you with that. Right, because it's a matter of going into the settings, not the mail app, but the settings, finding the settings for the mail app, and then changing them over from what they are now for Comcast to what they should be for getting it directly from Apple's mail servers and sending it out the same way when you send. Yeah, and I don't know if we want to take the time now to go into that. But that's the procedure. It's in this. You can investigate it without changing anything and learn a little something. The more you can learn about a problem, the better off, the closer you are to getting it solved. So if you go into the settings app and for mail and look for the settings for mail and just look around there and being careful not to change anything, it won't hurt anything just to look. And what you want to see is the two servers, the outgoing mail server and the incoming mail servers. Those are the things that you would probably need to change. However, there are other settings that might need to be changed along with those because not all mail servers work exactly the same way. So that's why I say it would take a little time to, dig that out and get it set. So if you look in there, at least you'll see the places where we're talking about. So, and then either come to Clubhouse Saturday or go to an Apple store maybe.
Do I have to do that separately
Yes, but, yeah, the catch is that, unless I'm mistaken, if you, okay, let's talk about just the incoming mail for a moment here, not the sending or outgoing. If you change it so that your mail comes into your iPhone directly from the mail server, that means your messages are going to come in and get downloaded and stored on the iPhone. That means if you're looking on your iPad, you aren't going to see those messages no matter what you do. If you change the settings for the iPad, they'll come in there. If you have them changed in both places, every time one of them fetches mail, they'll go to that device and only that device. So one way around it is just make one of them your mail device, pick one and use that exclusively for mail. Don't use the other one for mail. The other way around it is to do it in the cloud. Go into Safari on either device and keep all your mail there, and then it'll all stay there no matter what device. You could even go to a Windows PC in, another browser and access your mail that way and see the folders. But when you do that, the downside is everything gets stored in your account with Apple's server, and that's fine, but as time goes on, you're storing more and more stuff. Eventually, you may have to pay for extra storage or increase how much you're paying for now. So, there's different ways of doing it. Wait. Yeah, so you just have to decide, do I want all my mail on the phone or on the iPad? And then just from that point on, change the settings, and from that point on, use only that device for your mail. Yes, sir. So I didn't quite get.
So leave the server alone on each device, change the settings, get what you want.
Right. Right. I thought that's what I just said, but maybe it wasn't clear. But yeah. So you put, for example, say you want to get all your mail on your phone. You've set the servers for Apple's mail servers, incoming and outgoing, on the phone. And on the iPad, you turn off mail, or you leave the servers the way they are, or you just don't do anything with it. And then you also make whatever additional changes might be needed to get your mail, send and receive your mail on your phone. And then from that point on, you just use the phone for mail and never launch mail on the iPad. So is that basically what you're saying? No. Leave the server alone. That's what I'm saying. You can do it so that both devices get all the mail, and then you will have those messages duplicated. I'm not in favor of having when you go to send. It goes in the message you send goes in the sent mail folder, but on which device? It goes on the one you're sending from. So you have two different sent mail folders. They're not synced. Well, yeah. Actually, that is true. I think if you set up IMAP correctly, it will sync properly. But you have to set the settings on each device properly to do that, yeah. So come into Clubhouse or go to an Apple store. You should be able to get it set up how you want it. Okay, how are we on time? Okay, any more questions before we run out of time here? or comments? Yes, sir.
You mentioned about saving in a catalog.
Right.
What is a catalog?
Okay. Let me see if I can. Even though I don't use Lightroom, I think I can answer this. She uses a program called Lightroom, which is a photo. It's designed for people that take a lot of pictures, and you can do some editing, and you can, it's like the old days when we had film, and they'd have a thing called a light box, right? And you put the negatives or transparencies on this thing with light coming through. So that's where the name came through. So it's a way of equivalent to Photoshop, probably, although it
can go from Lightroom to Photoshop.
So the cataloging and storing part of it, it keeps some kind of its own internal catalog, which it stores somewhere in a file or a folder on normally the local hard drive, though she has hers on a external.
I have that on my iMac.
You have the catalog itself on, okay, so you have it split. The photos are on, which take up all this large storage are on the external RAID drives, and the catalog itself is on the internal drive, and that's a good thing in the sense that it speeds things up, because that catalog, if you're accessing that, you want it to be quick. You want it to be kind of an extension of the RAM or whatever in the computer. So the catalog is just like, it's similar to how the Finder and the Mac keep track of files and folders on your hard drive, but it's all happening inside this program. Well, when we say inside, it's not really inside the program, because the program itself has to, in reality, store stuff on the hard drive as well. There's really no inside the program. When the program's not running, your files, your catalog, and your pictures are still there. They're not in the program. They're just in some other, I hate to say format, but they're in some other arrangement. So,
You can access your pictures. They're there.
yeah.
If I want 2019 grandchildren, and then it's going to be all the different little
So,
soccer and basketball and whatever. That's so I want to be able to go back and look according to how I catalog. It's very much like the Finder.
yeah, so the catalog in a program like Lightroom has been optimized by the programmers for the job that it needs to do, or that the program needs to do, which may be not exactly the same as the way the Finder works, so they can do things a little differently to speed up access and to make it so you can search under multiple criteria like grandchildren or whatever. It's similar in that way. If you've ever used iPhoto or the newer version called Photos, the way you can organize things by year or by date or by category, it's kind of like that, only on steroids, I guess you could say. It's more of a professional level program, I guess you'd say, more full-featured program. Is that a fair assessment? Did that answer?
At least I have an idea.
Yeah, right. Right.
That's the first time I've heard that terminology.
And what was, let's see, who makes Lightroom? Is that Adobe? And Apple used to have one, I don't think they have it anymore, that was somewhat competitive with Lightroom. Do you remember that one? I forget the name of it.
Yeah, I do too, but
Anyway, but
I went with Lightroom.
yeah, I think,
One is another one. They've got a
yeah,
catalog
right.
way of working.
Yeah, I think Apple discontinued theirs and probably isn't even supporting it anymore, so.
But the fact that it's Adobe, you can get to Photoshop if you own Photoshop,
Right.
or if you have the CC, the cloud
Yeah,
versions
so
of those two.
because Adobe makes Photoshop and Lightroom, that means that Photoshop probably knows enough about how the catalog works to access and store photos in there, just like Lightroom itself would do. Is that a fair statement?
Well, you can,
You can change.
You can go photo, edit in Photoshop, and then it'll bring Photoshop
You can-
up, and when it saves it, it'll save it back
back to where it was in Lightroom or in the Lightroom catalog.
With layers or however you
Right. Okay. Any more questions? We're almost at the end of our time. Questions, comments? Okay. That's it. Go ahead.
So, welcome everybody. Paige, could you just stand up? Please announce our newest Prime member. So this is our Q&A graphic that I wasn't clever enough to put up. And so what I'll quickly talk about is the March schedule, the
Pi backend relocation, and then the raffle. So here's the March schedule. It's a full month, so we have 2 Saturdays of no Pi events. But the second Saturday will be a Clubhouse Saturday and a Pi board meeting. And then our afternoon learners will be back at Cedar Lane on March 14th. And another Clubhouse Saturday. And then the March general meeting will also be here. Mary Dodd, who is ill today, has been instrumental at creating a better communication with the Cedar Lane folks for us to plan the meetings far enough in advance to be sure we have enough of the meetings, in the Maryland side. And so we will do that. We're working on a couple of different topics for the March meeting, and so when we solidify that, I will send it around. So as usual, I'm hawking the Pi Bites of Pi, the new newsletter. While Richard isn't here today, this is the graphic that he came up with for the most recent newsletter, which Lawrence liked so much, he put on the Pi webpage. If Richard were here, I would ask for him to be recognized yet again, but instead we'll have to tell jokes at his expense. One thing I did want to quickly talk about is that over the last month or so, all of our back-end servers have been in the process of being temporarily relocated. And so there's been occasional dislocation of the email, of the TCS, of our issue keeper, of the wiki, and of the Pi website. But John Thomason, who is our mail admin and keeps all of the server stuff humming, has done heroic work to get everything going, to wade through the bureaucracy of Pepco and other things. And so things I hope will be smooth from here on out. I will be doing the parking passes today. As we go off to the coffee, I will pull that out. And anyone who needs a parking pass, come over. Has everybody signed in to the Pi check-in? Has everybody checked in using the laptop? Oh, okay. Let me suggest this. We'll go off to the coffee break, but we will leave the laptop open. And anybody who isn't checked in online, please do that. And then we'll do the Pi raffle for 2 Apple gift cards when we resume. Why don't we go early now to our coffee break, to our Pi social, and let's come back at 10:40. Thanks, everyone. We're having trouble with one of the hand mics.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me over here? Can you hear me here?
Fortunately, Larry isn't here today. He's the GMU faculty member who would tell you that we can't have coffee in the room here. But just leave it on the desk. That's okay. So we're going to do two things before you start, and one of them is Gabe is going to talk about a POTUX meeting coming up, and then Diana will announce the raffle winners, and then we will. Okay.
All right. Sounds good.
Sorry. And speak loudly.
So have you got the raffle covered already?
I haven't done it yet. Do you want to do it, or shall I do it?
Why don't you do it? I just
Okay.
probably can get those faster.
Exactly. You always do.
It gets recorded. I think it's also edited, but it's definitely recorded. They do have a stream. Edited.
So I can see it again when I get home?
As many times as you want.
Getting rid of spam?
No, when you get home, no.
Will take
Uh,
that.
Oh,
2 weeks
takes a
later.
while. Right.
He'll put the others next one on editing all the version. Or else it's live streaming at the same time.
Fantastic. Thank you.
So the light, if you were home right now, you could do the live stream.
Got it.
Otherwise, you're gonna wait a few weeks.
Okay. Fair enough.
Or you could be here and watching it on your phone.
I'll attend this.
What kind of cameras does your jacket get you good and bad?
Yes?
Actually, I do know that. Okay. Right.
Alejandra, are you? Okay, everybody. Let's actually start with Gabe Goldberg is going to talk a little bit about the upcoming POTUX meetings. Gabe?
Hi, I'm not going to buy you a lot of time because I don't have a lot to say. There's another group very similar to this called PATACS, P-A-T-A-C-S, which is the name of a group that only a committee could come up with, and it was named by a committee. And rather than Apple, its orientation is primarily Windows, although it's lately gotten more liberal and expansive. And it talks about iOS and iPhone, iPad, things like that. And at the March meeting, March 16th, I think, which is the third Saturday, we are having someone named Aaron from a company named Apple coming to give a presentation. And so if you don't get enough Apple information here, and at the 7 or 12 meetings that the Pi has every month, there's one more, the 16th of March, where the Pi is happily taking the day off. And we've been giving Aaron suggestions on what he ought to talk about. And I think we've probably given him enough topics to fill a week rather than the 75 minutes that he'll be allotted. But he's always good for questions. He speaks off the record, so there's no recording made, no direct quotes. And so you can actually get some interesting responses from him on what Apple is doing. So March 16th, meeting is very close to here. It's on Roberts Road, which is the perimeter road on the east side of the campus. And if you go to patacs.org, PATACS.org, you can see the meeting, see the information on the March 16th meeting. PATACS.org. ACS. P-A-T-A-C for Charlie, S. I wear hearing aids, so that's why I understand. I'm happy to repeat. PATACS does have two other meetings a month. The two other meetings are in Arlington, at Arlington County site called Harlan Hall. The first Wednesday of the month is a small presentation, and the fourth and solutions. All the information is at the PADAX website.
Thanks
Did I buy enough time for you?
I just actually, with everyone who signed in to the online check-in, used the Google random number, and Norman Zafa and Mike Goldstein are the winners of the pie raffle today. Please come down and get them, guys. So this is your reward for signing in online,
Well, thank
Norman.
you. You showed me how.
And the only thing I'd ask is, if you use it for something that's a good story, send it to us. Okay, what I'd like to do now is introduce Mike Wish. You know, Mike, I say FKA Mac Tipster. Mike has done wonderful presentations to us before, and when he mentioned wanting to take on the problem of all of the spam phone calls and emails and text messages that we get, I just jumped on it. So, Mike, welcome back.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thanks for inviting me back. It's nice to see all of you again. So, who's excited about spam? Yeah, so spam, it's kind of an interesting word that we use, this concept of spam. And I think that it's probably a little bit overused. I want to kind of talk, I wanted to do this presentation because I'm a big proponent of cleaning. I'm a big proponent of technology. And I think that sort of your digital identities are something to be kind of treasured and invested in and maintained. I mean, these phone numbers that you have, they're important that you keep them out of the hands of scammers and spammers and all these telemarketers. Your emails, it's nice to have an email that you don't have tons and tons of junk, so that when an important email comes in, you actually do get it. It clears your mental space. And so what I've kind of done through my enthusiasm of technology and cleaning is kind of land on some, I've explored a lot of technologies, both through your, but also just in general kind of best practices about how to keep your digital identities clean. So for example, reducing the number of the pieces of postal mail to near zero. I think some people would think that's unfathomable, but I receive almost no postal mail. I have eliminated spam callers up to 90%, and I can screen 100% of all unrecognized calls. And I'll also show you a little bit about a tool that I absolutely love, and it's a great company. And they're from Baltimore, so they're a local company. But they've developed a tool that helps you to quickly and easily categorize your mail in ways that allow you to eliminate it with a couple of clicks. And you feel good about it because you know exactly what it is. So that's kind of what I want to talk about today. It's going to be sort of high level, but I welcome your questions. And if there's some time at the end, I can show some demos and things like that. So. Some disclaimers is that there is some elbow grease required. You will have to work at this a little bit. There is some additional effort on your part required to really kind of maneuver some of the, they don't want to make it easy for you to unsubscribe and opt out of different types of communication that you don't want, but there are ways to do it thanks to different regulations that have been put out there. It's not a perfect process, so you kind of got to be nimble with it. But the reward of peace and mental space is well worth the investment of your time to try and get yourself, get your identities cleaned up. So I want to kind of define a little bit about what we're talking about here, because I think that there is some, a little bit of a misunderstanding about what spam is and how that is different from just general unwanted communication mediums. So I kind of did this graph with legitimate companies versus illegitimate companies or entities, and versus unwanted and wanted communication, right? So in our, over here, obviously, we have kind of all normal communications, right? Your normal phone calls you receive from people, emails you expect to receive, personal emails, personal calls, personal postal mail. There is a fair amount out there of companies that you do business with that will try to contact you. And I think that this is one area that you have the most control over, because these companies in general will respect your privacy if you go through the right mediums to tell them that. So we'll call that, we'll call that over here kind of junk mail and telemarketers. That's sort of what I'm talking about when I'm referring to those. Robocalls kind of fall in the middle. Sometimes you get robocalls maybe about a prescription that's ready at your pharmacy, or a bill that's past due, or you might get a robocall about some Chinese bank account that you didn't know you had. So those kind of fall in the middle. And then when we're talking about kind of spam is communication generally that is totally unwanted, and generally from totally illegitimate companies where they don't, even if you told them you don't care. So there's less you can do about that, but we're going to touch on some tactics to deal with that too. But just so we understand kind of what we're talking about. I couldn't really come up with what would be illegitimate wanted emails, but maybe that's outside legal bounds. But so first, let's talk about calls. So as I said, most legitimate callers from verified companies will generally respect your privacy. Usually, you will have to tell them in the call that you don't want to be contacted, that you want to be removed from a list. That usually requires picking up the phone if you recognize the company and telling them, please remove me from your calling list. And generally, they will say, okay. If somebody just hangs up on you, then it's not a legitimate company, usually. There is the do not call list, which a lot of people are familiar with, and although it's kind of not really seen as a very active method of blocking unwanted calls, it's important that you put your phone number on there, especially now because when you put your phone number on there, it's on there for life now. It used to only be 5 years and you had to renew it, but now it's there for life. So it's important that you put your phone number there, and that's donotcall.gov. Another way to eliminate calls is to visit privacy sections of a company's website, a legitimate company that you do business with. If you're getting calls from them, oftentimes you can actually get to a section where they tell you how to opt out of call marketing, email marketing, and postal marketing. Another one that's kind of, this is one of those ones like a little bit more elbow grease, but it's kind of fun when you figure it out. Has anyone ever Googled their name? So have you ever noticed that you get all these companies that actually have a weird amount of information about you, like an address or a phone number or your kids' names and your age and things like that? All of those companies have an opt-out in their privacy section. They always have a way you can remove your information. It's important to do something like that because those sites that index people's names, addresses, phone numbers, those are the first things that most scammers will hit, is they just scrape the web for people's names, addresses, and phone numbers. And if you can remove yourself from those lists, which they are required to do so, you will actually see your name disappear from search results, and you will see a gradual decline in the number of scam and marketing calls that you receive. Again, for those sites, you'd want to look for an opt-out or privacy section. So this is kind of a quick tip on how to, on your iPhone, how to screen all calls. Is anyone familiar with this or use Do Not Disturb on your iPhone? So your iPhone has one of the best features. I use it every single day because I have it scheduled from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. I don't want any calls or text messages from anybody unless it's an emergency or a favorite or someone close to me to be able to get through at night while I'm sleeping. But you actually are able to say, to turn on Do Not Disturb permanently. And you can say, in this section down here, let me circle it here. You can actually say, allow calls from contacts. And by doing that, you basically, in your contact list, are creating a whitelist of anybody who's allowed to contact you. And anyone outside of that, the call goes directly to voicemail. So that's a really handy way if you're ever used to, when you have a landline, if you are just allowing all the calls go to voicemail. This is kind of the iPhone way to do it. You can just have all of your calls directly go to voicemail. So this app, Hiya, this is sort of one of the iPhone tools or apps that are out there to allow you to be more aggressive about blocking those spam calls. So remember, we were talking about, we did a little bit on legitimate callers. This is more about how to block somebody that is illegitimate and will not respond to your own request to remove you from their lists. I've had good success with this company. It's a free application. They do have a premium version of it that gives you some additional features. But out of the box with the free application, you get passive blocking, which basically the app, as calls come in, are stopping them dead in their tracks on your phone. It will automatically block known spammers. They keep a list of all of the spam calls that come into all of their customers, and they update that list regularly. And it prevents, has anybody gotten phone calls where it looks like it's from a neighbor? Like it looks like it's from the same first 6 digits? So that term is called neighbor spoofing, and this thing is on the rise like crazy in the last year or so. And this app is able to block neighbor spoofing for free. You can do it for one first 6 digits. So for example, mine is 240899. So, and I've gotten a ton of calls, and just by enabling that one feature, I've eliminated most of the incoming spam that I get. This is for an iPhone. This is for an iPhone, yeah. Well, hopefully you have them in your contact list, because this app allows you to add, contacts of people that you regularly, interact with. So if you want to put your neighbors in there that might call you, then you basically, it'll bypass these filters. But otherwise, it will block everything. I don't have any neighbors in the 240899, sort of phone number. I mean, because that's a cell phone, so that's not really like a neighbor, right? It's just a ploy that they're using aggressively these days to try and get through to people. Yeah. They are relatively similar. I haven't used Truecaller extensively. I looked at that one. I chose this one because of I was actually not able to get this one working. But this one actually is the most popular one on the App Store, RoboKiller. RoboKiller is a little different because it requires that you give the sort of forwarding rights of your phone number to RoboKiller. So what actually, this is an active blocking tactic. It's actually it's actually routing your phone number through RoboKiller before sending it to you, which will make give some people pause about privacy and things like that. It means another entity has access to all of your call logs. But I actually wasn't able to get this one working, but I know that it's wildly popular with hundreds of thousands of reviews and 5 stars on this. But I would say the best part about this one in particular is that it actually has a bot, a ton of bots actually, that answer the phone and start talking to the scammers. So they actually have, like, if you get this app, you can actually listen to real recorded calls. Some of them, one of the most hilarious one is this guy picks up and he's talking to the telemarketer. He's saying, yeah, so I'm practicing to go on American Idol. I'm wondering if you could listen to my rehearsal. And he starts singing for like 2 or 3 minutes. And this poor telemarketer is just like, oh yeah, I think it's great, and you're gonna do great. But the idea is just basically to waste their time, right? And you kind of give them a little bit of their own medicine. So yeah. So RoboKiller is a premium product. So this one, I think it's $3 a month, or it's $30 a year, which is not a lot to pay, I think, for some peace of mind, So Hiya is free. They have a free version, and they do have a premium version that gives you some additional features like adding other neighbor numbers that are calling you. And I think that before that, all these other ones are free options. Truecaller, I'm not.
Truecaller is free, and it has a premium version for more services.
Right.
And another thought that hadn't occurred to me until now is using Google Voice, and have Google Voice forward to your phone. And I think Google Voice does screening, and it tells you.
It does, yeah.
Press 1 to continue and tell who you are, and a robot isn't going to deal with that. And
right.
So that'll just block.
Right. Yeah, I actually, that's a great point about Google Voice. I had thought a lot about trying that out. My concern with Google Voice when I used it for my business was that I noticed there's a little bit of a delay when you're talking through Google Voice sometimes, which can impact, if you do get a legitimate call, you're still going to have to communicate through Google Voice, and that was a concern for me. But I think that's a good... Okay.
I felt that it was slowing down.
Cool. Yeah.
I've used it on the cell phone. It's come into a landline, and I wonder if the difference there is that it's for some reason faster.
Right.
Talking to the
right.
landline. But again, it's just another drawbridge that gets raised to keep the bad guys out.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think Google Voice does an awesome job of filtering, as they actually do with their email, and I'll touch on that briefly. Any other questions about calls? I think we're at the end of calls here. Oh, I can briefly touch on landlines. One product that's worked really well is Nomo Robo. Nomo Robo is, you do have to, it's kind of like that RoboKiller product. You have to forward your calls to Nomo Robo. Correct. And that requires a little bit of getting into the system settings of your phone provider, like Verizon or Comcast. But it does, I found it works really well, but I think it's only for robocalls, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know how much they do sort of active telemarketing.
This is Cox country. Fairfax County is Cox country. Cox does not yet support Nomo Robo.
Okay.
They claim that it's coming, and the last I heard was it's coming by the end of the year. The last time I called them up and badgered them about it, and they said it's coming by the end of the year, but they said the more people who call, the faster it might get here. So everybody here with telephone through Cox, go home and call Cox and say you want them to enable simultaneous ring for Nomo Robo, and maybe we'll get it before Christmas present.
Right, right. Yes.
We have Verizon Fios for our landline up in Maryland, and they now have it, Verizon does, so that if you have their phone app, it actually handles all three, internet, phone, and TV, or whatever you have, and you go into the phone settings, or the phone part of the app, Nomo Robo is now listed prominently on that screen, and it's very, very easy to turn it on without having to dig your way through a bunch of buried settings.
Great.
Just go to this one screen. I don't know, you might have to agree to something, and then you switch the switch on, and it's on, and
Great.
It's on your line, and that's all you have to do.
Awesome.
It basically turns on the simultaneous ring feature that needs to be on, rather than you having to go looking for it.
Right.
And we've been using that for a while. I would say it blocks at best 50% of the calls.
That's a great segue to the comment I wanted to quickly offer, which is we've been using Nomo Robo for many years, and it was very effective for a lot of the time, but increasingly the number spoofing is beyond them. They don't have a solution to that.
So So the question was about sort of number spoofing on landlines being a real problem. And one thing I had set up for my parents, because I don't have a landline, so it's a little bit, I haven't explored it as much, but I did set up something for my parents where there's a little, these little call blocker devices you can pick up from Amazon or wherever. They do work. They're a little bit limited, and they're kind of, you know, last decade technology, I would say. You have to sort of, you know, finagle just a couple different buttons on a small display and sort of read the instructions and figure out how it works. But it does work, and you can, a lot of them you can set up like a number matching pattern if you want basically the first 6 digits or the first 3 digits to be blocked. You can set that up. Or you can even set up, what I thought the most useful one is to use the phone, the device's memory, is to set up just a whitelist of numbers that would normally call you. You know, I mean, I would think most people have a limited number of people that call them on their landline regularly. You know, I think most people that are important, if they couldn't reach you on your landline, would try you maybe on a cell phone or another device, an email or something like that. So.
FiOS landlines, they also have a blocking feature built in, so you don't necessarily have to buy it.
I think the FiOS feature only supports like 10. Last I checked, it was only like 10 numbers. Oh, okay. All right. 100's much better. Okay. Great.
No additional charge.
Right.
And you just go in, you know, you can select a number that's called you, go in there and turn on blocking, and then it's blocked after that. The only catch is 100 isn't really enough anymore.
Right. Can you do something like on the FiOS system? Can you do like a matching of the first? No.
Unfortunately, it's
okay.
not that sophisticated.
Okay.
It's all or nothing. You either block or don't.
There's you know, another tool that has a lot of sophisticated blocking features is if you want to go the voice over IP route. Ooma is I think it's like costs $10 a month for the landline, they have sort of an interface, a web interface that you can set up all sorts of call blocking tools. I've not personally used it, but I've heard good things about it. So, other questions about calls? Yeah.
Just a comment. Recently, when we got our credit card statement, there were 6 bogus charges from Madrid for currency.
Fun.
So I called the company and I said, I'm amazed that nobody called me concerning this. And she said, we did. So they made calls to our landline, but they were robocalls.
Wow.
When I would hear, this is your credit card calling, then I would just, you know, dump it.
Block it.
So
That's.
so the solution of it, though, was there's an option to have a text
Right.
message sent when the account is being used. So that's
Yeah, I think that's always a hazard to, you know, because like I said, there are legitimate companies that do use robocalls to contact you, right? You know, if you would never know that your prescription's available at most like CVS pharmacies, I feel like. So, you know, that's where you want to be careful about what you're blocking if you do expect calls. But yeah, that's just a hazard. Especially with credit cards, though, you can usually get the app, and the app can sometimes give you a notification or send a text message, as you mentioned. So that'd be one way to combat that. Yeah.
Do you know the truth about whether we should answer them or shouldn't answer them? Is it do not call back?
Look, I think the truth about whether you should answer them or not is kind of irrelevant if you have a tool you're using to block things. You know, I mean, I think that I could see it both ways. I really don't know one way or the other, to be honest. But I think that, you know, I'd rather spend the time sort of removing my number from public spaces. And sort of, you know, if you think about a boat that's sinking, right, you sort of, you can either kind of bail the boat out continually, or you can find a way to kind of plug the leak, right? So it's sort of, you know, trying to find those ways to get your number out of public spaces, to remove yourself from as much as you can and control as much as you can, will have a drastic impact on how many calls.
Question or comment on the, and I'm not sure which, on the do not call list. When we moved about 4 years ago from California to Maryland, people who are on this list. That's supposed to be so legitimate companies screen their calling list against these numbers and not calling them. But what's to stop a bad guy from getting this list and using it, mining it, and calling the numbers on it?
So the question was about, is the do not call list more of a vulnerable place to put your information, and does that information get out? So you were saying that it was when you moved?
Well, yeah, because our number was one we had for many years.
Okay.
It was out there, and even though I put our numbers, our mobile and our landline on the do not call list as soon as it came out and left it there, nonetheless, we still got a ton of telemarketing calls toward the end there. It really didn't seem like the list was helping any.
So, yeah, I think that the do not call list is the easiest of options, but I don't think it's the most effective. I think it's one way to limit legitimate companies. As we said, there's legitimate and there's illegitimate, right? It's a good way to limit legitimate companies from calling you because they face regulation, fines, penalties if they do violate that, right? However, if what you're saying is that you received a ton of new marketing contacts when you had a change of status, you changed an address, you changed, you moved, you bought a house, there's little that I know of that you can do to block that. When you purchase a home, you will not believe the number of scams you get about mortgage insurance, mortgage warranty. Like some of this information is just public information, and there's really no way around it. So that's why you have these other kind of tactics to try and limit the flow of them. But it's a constant battle. Yeah, let's talk a little bit about emails. So same rules apply with emails. Legitimate senders from verified companies will respect your privacy. Unsubscribe links are your best friends when it comes to email. It may seem weird, and I know that there's a lot of information out there about, well, if you click the link, then you're telling them that that you're actually there. If this is a company you have done business with, or you've interacted with at all in the past, or you even recognize the name of it, click the unsubscribe link, because, as I said, legitimate companies follow the rules. So if you remove yourself from legitimate mail, then all you're dealing with is spam, and a lot of times these kind of spam blockers are much more effective at blocking those types of emails. As long as it's not a phisher, right? I mean, and like I said, but phishing email also get picked up with the right email spam blockers. I mean, generally, I don't generally get phishing emails landing in my inbox, in my Gmail inbox. I do see them a fair amount, but it's usually because they're in my spam. So as I said, always search for unsubscribe or manage communication preferences on the bottom of the email. Some of the most common places that people get added to email lists is when you sign up for a new service or you purchase something. Look for a checkbox anytime you buy something online that says, usually it's already checked for you, but I want to receive emails about promotions and other events and things like that. Uncheck that whenever you buy something or you sign up somewhere. And get a Gmail address. I mean, I'm Apple through and through, but nothing tops Gmail's spam filter. I'm telling you, it's the best out there. It's the most effective at blocking spam, I think. So this is a tool, UnrollMe. Has anyone heard of UnrollMe before? It's sort of a little bit different. It's kind of for managing wanted emails. What UnrollMe does is it allows you to put email that you do want to receive, like maybe a regular newsletter you receive, maybe there's some stores that you like to receive their offers and promotions. But what it does is it funnels it into a digest. So basically you can categorize all of the email that you do want to receive that is regular but is also filling up your inbox into a single email that looks like this. So they'll actually sort of show you what emails have come in, but they'll do it all in a single email. They also have a one-click unsubscribe feature, which is really kind of awesome. So that'll show you all the services that you are subscribed to. You can quickly go through and click unsubscribe, and it will remove you from those lists. This is a totally free service, but use at your own discretion because they are getting essentially access to all of your email. So Maelstrom, this is that company I was talking about. It's a Baltimore-based company, and I apologize, it's a little bit blurry, but they have, I would say this is the most instrumental tool I use in clearing my email. This, again, they will get your email, access to your email, but what they do is they give you these incredibly handy filters. So they have, you can sort things by sender, by subject, by whether it's a social or a shopping email, the size of the email. And when you click on it, they give you these kind of options. So you can see every person that has sent you email, and it will group them all together. You can click a checkbox and click delete, and they're all gone. So if you want all of your Bank of America emails gone, you click Bank of America, and they're all deleted, filtered and deleted from your email. If you don't want, if there's a particular email from a bank that you want to delete, here's your monthly statement. You can find that. It actually looks for subject lines and says, here's all the emails you got with this subject. Here's your monthly statement. And it will delete all those emails. It sounds kind of tedious, but this system is incredibly easy to use once you get the once you kind of play around with it a little bit. And then they've got this handy little thing right here to tell you how close you are to inbox 0, which is always the goal, to get your inbox to 0. And it will show you how much email you've cleared out since you started using the service. This service is it's a paid service. It's I think it's like $4 or $5 a month, but generally you can use it for 1 month, clear out. I'm not kidding. I've cleared out 20,000 emails in 30 minutes, and and you can be done with it for another year and come back to it in a year and pay another $5 for a month. It's an incredibly useful service. I fully support anyone using this if you have a real big email problem.
Can't you do most of those things with the Apple Mail product already?
I don't know, because I haven't used Apple's Mail in a while.
You have a way of setting up filters for both?
Sure. If you want to go through and set up a filter for each email and each sender, that will take you 10 times as much time as this app sort of collating it for you, and that's the reason that it's so valuable. Right. So what this does is it automatically creates a filter for every single, not only every company that sends you email, but every type of email that company sends you, or every sender from a particular company, or every type of notification. It's very granular on how it organizes, and all you have to do, it's like 2 clicks. Click it and click delete, and you can go through, you can run through, I'm not kidding, thousands of emails in less than an hour. So you're going to swipe them all down? Sure. Like I said, this is not like a it's not impossible to do yourself. This can totally be done yourself. If you've got that kind of time to do that, you can definitely spend the time and the elbow grease to clean out your email. I'm of the opinion that I want to spend as little time doing this and get as much benefit as possible, so I pay the $5, and it blasts out, like I said, 20,000 emails in less than an hour. The downside is that you have to be comfortable with another service having access to your email. That's exactly. That's the big red flag that will prevent you, and the fact that it costs money, right? Right. Right. Exactly.
But is Maelstrom a little better than Unroll.me? Unroll.me uses advertising and uses your information in ways that aren't really
correct. Yeah. So Unroll.me is they don't charge anything because they basically harvest data, and they sell that aggregated data as insights to companies. So, you know, I think they're a bigger privacy concern than Maelstrom is. They're kind of different services because Maelstrom is really about cleaning up all email, whereas UnrollMe is really about if you get lots of regular emails, this helps you to control them, and it helps you to kind of pare down the number of regular emails you're getting. It's not really a service for cleaning up your inbox. It's more like for dealing with wanted email.
And that's correct. Strong,
Yep. Yep. Maelstrom. Yeah, Maelstrom, like yes.
We have a Pine member who recommends SaneBox. Are you familiar with that one?
I'm not familiar with SaneBox. Is it similar to?
It categorizes your email.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of filters it and puts it in different categories.
Okay. It sounds pretty similar to what this is doing. Yeah. Is that like something you would also reply to emails, or is that only a tool for sorting the emails and just sorting? Okay. Cool. So that sounds like another tool to kind of look into. SaneBox? SaneBox?
S-A-N-E.
Mm-hmm. So let's jump into postal mail. This will be kind of quick. I think that I have a particular interest in reducing postal mail because I think that just the clutter, the physical clutter for me is a much bigger problem than the digital one. Same rules apply. Legitimate companies will respect your privacy if you ask for it. Most of the time you will find a privacy section on companies' websites where you can opt out of direct marketing. There are often places on companies that you do business with that you can go into My Account and their communications and marketing preferences. That is often where you'd find under My Account, communications and marketing preferences are often where you'd find places you can shut off direct mail or request to be shut off. Even some postal promotions, if you look for the fine print, will often sometimes tell you a contact number for the company that sent it to you. And sometimes will give you opt-out information. Rarely, but sometimes they do. Frequent ones that I've seen, like Post Points, fame we get that like sort of that little mailer. It's like newspaper with all these promotions, apartment list, like all these different kind of bulky newspapers that you never signed up for. All of those will respect your privacy if you reach out to them and ask to be removed. Oftentimes, they want you to call and talk to somebody, so there's the highest chance of there being an error. There's no like automated way to do it because they don't want to lose customers, but there is a way to do it. It just takes a little bit of effort on your part. This one is a little bit different, but find the Go paperless option on every single website you do business with. That has contributed to the biggest reduction in mail for me is by having all of my statements, my communications come in via my email. I prefer to manage it there because it's with me all the time, right? I can access it at any given point. And if you couple that with auto-paying all of your bills with a credit card or debit card, you will find that your paper mail can disappear pretty quickly. You won't receive much email from most of the companies that you do business with. This is a handy little tool, especially if you move, this return to sender stamp. I absolutely love this thing. I bought it for $10, and it's the best $10 I ever sent. If you ever receive email that's not addressed to you or that you didn't order, you just stamp it right on there and drop it in the box and send it back. And a lot of times people will, you'll stop getting emails from those sources. Yeah?
Yes, we sent more years ago when Book Clubs would send you unlocked books.
Mm-hmm.
You write return to sender COD airmail.
There you go. Return to sender COD airmail. That's the new bar.
A lot of my junk mail is packets of newspaper-like stuff with multiple
Yes.
packaged together to our neighbors at or friends at.
Right, right. A lot of those, again, if they are legitimate companies, you can contact them and you just have to kind of, like, I usually will Google the name of whatever the brand name is of the packet. So, Exactly, like Value Pack or Red Plum is another one. Like, if you Google that and opt out, with the words opt out afterwards, you will find often some instructions on how to remove yourself.
I think a lot of them are just for the neighborhood.
No, they are, but I think you can. I do think that most companies do want to respect. I mean, whether they want to respect people's privacies, they don't want to waste money on people that don't want their, because they're spending money to disseminate that paper. So if people don't want it, I mean,
That's just done by address. If you move, somebody else lives in that house, they're going to send it to that address.
Right, and then you go and opt out, and it stops coming, because I've done it several times. And it works, I'm telling you. Yes?
Yeah, I'm a retired mailman, so I know something about this.
There we go.
Full route coverage, they hate to have it go to that house, say occupant or resident, and it does not. If you refuse, you can refuse any mail. You can refuse certified mail, registered mail, anything like that, and but it will not go back to that sender because if it's third-class mail, it just dies. It goes back. It just aggravates.
Into the trash, yeah.
But the Postal Service does have one thing right now that's good. It's called Informed Delivery Daily Digest.
I get that.
You're going to come up to it, which shows you a photograph of
Yeah.
every piece of mail you're getting that day. And so you can say, okay, if it's something you're really interested in that you need to have, so you can go over to, say, Navy Federal and say, do I still have any money in my account? Because Navy Federal is having some major problems right now. You'll know that piece of mail is coming that day. So that's a handy thing.
Yeah, that's a cool tool.
The last comment is, I had a walking route in Fairfax County where I was pumping up and down hills, just like training for triathlon. And this one house was getting an unbelievable amount of magazine catalogs to the extent that I had to stop in front of the house and I carried 2 or 3 tubs of
Oh, wow.
up to this guy's house. And I finally saw him and I said, you can't be reading all this. He said, no, I signed up for every single one of these. I'm trying to see if I can heat my house all winter.
Nice. There you go. So using catalogs as firewood, right?
Yeah, resident email, like I said, there's certain stuff, if you look at it very carefully, it
Right.
says address correction requested, it goes back to them, even
Right.
if it is bulk rate mail. But most bulk rate mail, you're just making,
Right.
you're just aggravating.
Generally, that stuff, I mean, the marketing emails like that, I find that, it's hit or miss whether you can find a way to opt out. But there are definitely ways to reduce those kinds of, oh, you're a new neighbor. Here's your mail. Here are all the companies that are around you. You can usually opt out from a lot of that stuff, and a lot of that stuff stops after the beginning. The name of the service he mentioned was Informed Delivery Digest. Is that what it was?
I think it's Informed Delivery Daily Digest, and it's not available in the whole country.
Right.
I would say in this area, I get it. I would say pretty much anybody who lives in the Northern Virginia area.
Yeah. It's you have to go to the website, to the USPS website to sign up. Is that correct?
And it does some things back that's kind of interesting. It'll ask you, like, how long have you lived at this address? And it'll give you 4 choices that are kind of close. Now, the way they give you a photograph of it is this mail's running through high-speed sorting machine. There's video capture going on. And that's so that if there's a problem, like it's a handwritten address, and if the machine can't read it, it defaults, it puts a marking barcode on the back, and that defaults to a human who's sitting at a console somewhere who tries to interpret it for you, and then use that video capture to provide the service to let you know.
A comment on that, it's great, but it's imperfect, because I will get things in the mail delivered that were not in the email, and I will see things in the email that sometimes don't come for a day or two. So it's not bad. It also tells you about packages.
It also shows me that mail that I returned to sender, actually. Sometimes you see that stamp that you put, and even though it doesn't come back to you, it does show up because it was originally addressed to you.
One last question. Bruce, do you have one last question?
Yeah, I was just going to comment that I've heard of people getting a piece of mail addressed to someone at their residence, but they didn't want to write deceased on it and putting it back.
Oh, there you go.
Even if the person is very much alive.
Right.
I don't know how well it works. I don't think I would recommend people try that. It might have negative repercussions.
changes status or something.
Undertakers or florists or something.
Right. So real quick, there's a great website called dmachoice.org. It costs $1 to register your account, and you can put, I think, almost as many addresses or names as you want in this service. And what this will do is they will tell companies as part of the Direct Marketing Association not to mail you. And so it's a way to take a crack at some of the very common sort of unwanted mail that gets sent to you. So that's a pretty easy system. The website is not great, but when you find where you list all the addresses, I would recommend listing any names that you might have used on the mail and listing them exactly as you would, so that way it catches everything that could potentially be, raise a flag about your name. Within that site, you will learn about opt-out pre-screen, which is fantastic. It's again a little bit more invasive. You have to provide your Social Security number to this organization, and what they do is they remove you from pre-screened credit card offers. The problem is that all of these credit unions, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, all these guys are constantly evaluating whether your Social Security applies for certain credit cards, and they provide this information to those credit card companies, and you receive credit card offers. The first time you do it, it lasts for 5 years. If you go through the extensive verification process, which just requires you signing something and mailing it back, it will be for life. And it follows you because it's tied to your Social Security number. And then there's Catalog Choice, which, unless you want to heat your home with catalogs for the year or the winter, Catalog Choice is a website that you can log on to. You can search for most widely distributed catalog providers, and you can eliminate those catalogs by providing your name and email address. A lot of the one thing I will say about a lot of the mail services is that it takes a while to take hold. So your efforts will not be felt for probably 6 to 12 weeks. So I doubt I have time for the video, so we can maybe, if there's time at the end, we can come back and do it. But if anybody is interested, this gentleman, James Veach, he's a very common TED talker, and he does a whole lot of hilarious things where he basically replies to spam emails, and he posts and goes through all the conversations, and they're absolutely hysterical. But maybe if there's time at the end after the next presentation. So thank you guys.
We'll now switch to is two-step authentication. And if you know what that is, Bruce will tell you how to use it. If you don't know what it is, he'll explain that too. Go to it, Bruce. Oh, it's a $25? Yeah.
Okay, how are you doing? Again. How many of you were at the last Apple Pie Afternoon Learners SIG about a week ago last Thursday? Anybody here? A couple, one or two. Okay, so for those of you that were there, this is mostly going to be the same stuff. So you feel free to, doze off or whatever. How many of you know or think you know what two-factor authentication or two-step verification is already? Quite a few. Okay, good. So basically, it seems to me like with all the data breaches and other problems these days, wouldn't it be nice if there was something you could do proactively to help protect yourself? And one thing that you can do is called two-factor authentication, or goes by other names like two-step verification, which for this short talk basically means the same thing. That's part of a more general topic or service called multi-factor authentication. And authentication just means making yourself known to a website or an app or a service. You know, are you who you say you are? And it's a form of keeping out people that shouldn't have access to your information or your services, like keeping people out of your house with a lock on your door or on all your doors. And so multi-factor authentication, there's basically three parts to it. Something you know, something you have, and something you are. So the something you know part is a password or PIN code like you might use for an ATM, or password that you enter on a website, or the password that you enter to log in when you start up your Mac or to unlock your iPhone. That's something you know. Something you have would be a mobile phone or some type of fob, like a key fob or something physical. If you have a keyless entry system on your car and you have a key fob, that's something you have, isn't it? It's something physical you carry around on your keychain with you. A key to your front door is also something physical. So there's something you know, something you have. Finally, the third one is something you are. And that's usually something that's biometric in nature. It could be your fingerprint, such as on your home key on your phone or iPad, or your face on an iPhone 10 series device that has facial recognition, or a voice print for systems that use that for authentication. It's some physical characteristic that is in some way unique to you that would be difficult, if not impossible, for someone else to impersonate, okay? So of those three, we all have the first one, something you know, password on our websites and our apps. That exists in your brain and probably only in your brain. So it's difficult for somebody to compromise it, but in order for it to work properly, the site you're logging into or the thing you're using it with has to have some form of that too, don't they? Because otherwise, how would you get in? If you enter your password, it has to have some way of checking if it's the right or the wrong password. And the way they normally do that is they store the password in some encrypted form that's difficult for somebody to unencrypt so that they can read it in plain text without a lot of work. And some websites have been known to do things not according to best practices. Maybe they didn't encrypt properly or at all, or there was some other problem with their encryption. So in those cases, a password alone would not keep anybody out if someone were to get a hold of that file or that data from the website. Now, we talked about biometric, like your fingerprint or something, but let's go to the second one, something you have. For most websites that support two-factor authentication, they use something you know, which is the password, and something you have, and the something you have is usually your mobile phone. Okay, everybody these days pretty much has a mobile phone of some sort, and usually you have a form of text messaging or SMS messaging on that phone. So the way two-factor works is you go to the website in question, and usually it's in the area where you would change your password if you were going to, and somewhere nearby there's going to be a place where you can turn on two-factor authentication, provided the website supports it. And when you do that, there's a box where you have to put in your mobile phone number for them to text you a code. So then when you log in with that password, the next thing that happens is that it texts you this code to your phone. When you take the code off your phone and type it into your computer or whatever you're using, and that lets you in. Yes, comment or question?
Both of these, assume we have secure communications.
I'm having a lot of trouble here.
So both of these assume we have secure communications. No one is using a keystroke lock. Nobody is reading your phone traffic.
One would hope, yes. That is, there could be times when that's possible. My own personal feeling is that text messaging is pretty secure. I guess it's possible to hack into it, or people have done that, but it wouldn't be that easy. And remember, that's only one thing. Even if they can hack into your text messaging, they still have to somehow have that password too. It takes two to tango, so you're making it more difficult for them. Yes, Gabe?
Many sites offer a choice of how to send the thing that you need, so they can offer an email to the email address you've registered.
Right.
They can even offer calling you and reading you the
Correct.
code. But one comment on two-factor authentication, there are ways to do a man-in-the-middle attack where the bad guys impersonate the website you want to log on to. You think you're talking to the real website, you're talking to the bogus website. That generates a code that the real site sends to you. You enter the code on the bogus website, and then they have your credentials, and then they log on to the real site. So two-factor authentication is protection, but it's vulnerable.
Yes, there's no panacea, no one thing that, unfortunately, in this world that will completely protect you 100% of the time. What I am suggesting is that two-factor authentication in most cases is better than not having it. So whenever you can, I would advise that you turn that on and put in your phone number, your mobile phone number.
Another comment, sometimes websites enable it but don't tell people. I've been badgering Navy Federal Credit Union for several years that they needed to turn it on. I finally sent them a periodic crankygram yesterday saying, when are you people going to get with this century? And they said, oh, we enabled that last August. And it turned out that they had enabled it, and the way they told people about it was one notice on one splash screen of one app. And even though they badger you constantly to go paperless, they weren't doing anything like that to tell people to use two-factor authentication. So if you're using Navy Federal, you actually can use 2FA now, even though it's been a secret.
And another problem with two-factor authentication of the specific kind we've been talking about with text messaging is that not all sites support it yet. However, the trend seems to be increasing, more and more are. So, I'd recommend that you go home and as you get time, go through some of your accounts, your Facebook account, and if you have a LinkedIn account or whatever else, and go look and just poke around in there. It's usually near the password change area or somewhere in the settings or preferences for that site, for your account on that site. See if there isn't a checkbox somewhere to turn on two-factor authentication or two-step verification, and turn it on. It's not the be-all and end-all of the world. There are some vulnerabilities. Gabe mentioned sending emails. Well, email is not and has never been really secure. Most email is plain text. It's not sent as encrypted messages. So that means any network administrator or system administrator anywhere along the way potentially can eavesdrop without you ever knowing it. And they can get whatever's in there. What helps the matter is by the fact that email these days has grown to such voluminous proportions. Your little email is buried in there with all these others, and unless they're doing something to search specifically for that, they're never going to notice you. Chances are they might hit you by accident, but that's pretty unlikely. So that kind of helps. There's another downside to this whole process, and that is most websites have a password reset procedure. So like Apple, it's called, you click on the link called I forgot. And whatever they do, usually there's an option to send you a password, a new password or something to get you in, and send it by email. Well, that's fine. And then, by the way, if you ever have to do that, the first thing you should do is go and change your password again. Why? Because that email they sent you just went out unencrypted, didn't it? So, and it's not only subject to being intercepted along the way, it's subject to being backed up by different computers along the way and stored, and you just don't want that. So you want a new password that didn't go through that. But there are flaws in the reset procedure where people can call the website if they have a number, like Apple does, and try to impersonate you and basically social engineer you them into giving out something that lets them into your account. So anyway, really that's about all there is to it, unless anybody has any questions. Like I said, the short answer is continue to change your passwords like you always have. This is not going to replace that. But turn on two-factor authentication whenever you can. And most of the time you'll be better off for having done that. And yes?
Something else to keep in mind is not all passwords are equally important.
Absolutely.
It's probably not going to hurt much if someone gets that password.
Right. If you've got subscription to a newspaper like the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, or whatever, okay, somebody gets access to your account. What can they do? They can read the newspaper for free. Big deal, Probably you don't even have your credit card stored in there, and if it is, it's probably not in a form that they can get the full number out anyway, so that's not going to help them. On the other end of the scale is your bank and financial things. Those are really important, aren't they? Those are ones I would recommend checking, and if you can, turn on two-factor authentication for them. But yes, sir.
I think there's one other aspect, and that is, suppose you become incapacitated or deaf, how do your heirs or others gain access? And you need to think about that also.
That's a good point, and give.
Going paperless, at least the paper shows up in the mail and people can find it eventually.
Yeah, and telling another family member about where you store your passwords, whether it's on paper or in the computer, and how to get to it, is probably a good idea for that and other reasons. People you trust, at least one other person. Beyond that, well, they can go through the same password reset procedure you would if you were still alive, as long as they have control of the email account that's going to get sent to, or of the phone line it's going to get, that's going to get called if it's a phone call. So, okay, yes?
We talked about
Alan.
Receiving something in email is not being terribly secure. We talked about receiving a code number in a text message as being a little better.
Right.
But I've also got a couple of these authenticator apps.
Right. Google has one, and
there's
I think Facebook might even have, or they use Google, actually.
One is Google, and they're both called, I've got two of them on here, they're both called Authenticator. The one is from Microsoft, and they just initiated either face or a fingerprint ID to even be able to use it.
That's a good idea.
The other one is not. How do we encourage companies to use these?
I don't know, use the Gabe method, pester the daylights out of them, right? Call them or email them periodically, whatever. Email is easy to ignore. Calls not so much, but there's not always a phone number that you can get through on. Yes, Diana.
Do you have any advice for people who actually don't have a phone where they can do this kind of thing?
Oh.
My best friend still does not have a smartphone. She promises all the time that she's going to get one, but she still hasn't.
Okay, so
This seems to be completely out of the realm of possibility.
so if she doesn't have any text messaging capability,
She never uses it.
no. So
She never uses it. I mean, she has a cell phone that she doesn't even buy.
some of these services have alternative methods of providing that second authentication factor. Instead of a text message, you can request a phone call, and that can be to a normal voice phone, such as your home phone line. Does she have a home phone?
Yes, she has a landline.
So she could, for those services that support it, she could check the box or whatever for phone call and put in her landline phone number, and she will get an automated phone call that will give her the code, just like she would see in the text message. And I think it repeats, it depends on the service, but they probably send it a couple times. There may be an option if you missed it to hit something on your phone dial to have it repeated while you're still on the line. And that would work pretty good too, because landlines, they're pretty secure, although just like text messages and landlines, people who work for the phone company could, or the mobile carrier, could conceivably intercept those, just like email can be intercepted by people along the way. Yes? Yeah, well, yes, but a lot depends on where you are. If you're home and you're the only one home, who cares? Or if your wife's there and you don't care, she knows what's in your keychain or what the passwords are, presumably. But if you're in an office setting and they're open cubicles, yeah, I would want to not leave that keychain access up when I walk out of the cubicle or something. Now, on OS 10, as on, let's see if I can get this. I might have to switch it, Dale. Which one am I on here? 3? Number. Hello. Oh, it's not. Yeah, it is hooked up. Oh, no. Okay, it's on 1. Why is the projector off? Oh, there it goes. It's that little, there's about 4 or 5 seconds delay on this thing. Okay, let's see if I can demonstrate this on here real quick. All right. Get back to a nice clean desktop. I don't think it's showing here, but if you go to Users and Groups Preferences, for you old timers out there, this used to be called Accounts Preferences a few major releases of the operating system ago. And let me see here.
You can't do it. This is not an admin account, Bruce.
What?
This is not an admin account.
It's not what? Oh.
So you won't be able to show what you want.
Ah. Is this the only... Why can't I even click on it?
Well, you have to unlock it.
There we go. What's the... I don't know. Not going to work. Not even if I put in the troubleshoot account.
That's the admin account. It's not going to work.
Not going to work.
No, those are all my credentials.
All right, so, all right. Well, somewhere in here, actually, I think it's under, it's probably under keychain access. Anyway, I'm sorry, I can't.
You better show this with the old 5-act pump.
Show it. What? Somewhere in here, there's a setting. If I can find it in time. Oh, on the old one? Oh, all right. Good. We have to use the DVI or whatever it's called, right? That one doesn't have HDMI. Okay. Okay, well, what I was going to show, and maybe we can still show it, is there's a setting. It's been so long since I've had to change it, I've forgotten where it is. If it's not in users and groups preferences, then it's in the security settings or the preferences in the Keychain Access app. And what that setting does is it puts an icon in your menu bar and allows you to lock and unlock the display, among other things. So if you're in a work environment, an open cubicle, instead of shutting your laptop down or putting it to sleep, you can just lock the screen, and then it takes the same password to log in or to unlock it that you would enter normally, and it's much faster, even than coming out of sleep, to do that. So let's see if I can. How come? All right, it's not on this one. Let's see if I can find it. I don't.
This is the older.
Okay. Okay. Let's see. Okay. See if I can show you the one I'm talking about. So this would be a way to quickly lock your screen if you're going to leave your machine and don't want to shut it down, but you still want some security. Let's see here. Keychain status and menu bar. That's the one. Okay, so if you turn that on and it's in Keychain Access now, it looked different in the newer one, so I didn't see it offhand, so either it's in a different place or they've removed it, but I think it's probably there in that app. But you see this little padlock that it just put on my menu bar? If I go down and say lock screen, I could do lock keychain or lock the screen. Lock keychain just does what it says, locks the keychain. But if you want to protect basically the whole machine, you do a lock screen and you'll get this. Yes? Keyboard equivalent to
the lock screen. I've got lock screen on the top, but there's no keyboard equivalent at the end of the name. So I've tried to get my own, and I've been unable to. You know a way to do that? I find a keyboard equivalent, command, whatever.
I think on the latest, like on Mojave, I'm seeing that it's it would be, I think it's Control Command Q. Yeah.
Okay, I don't know. The password I'm trying, John, is not unlocking the screen, so I didn't try that one. Okay. So if there isn't a keyboard shortcut, if there is one on the newer version, then use that. But if that's not there, either because you've got an older version of the operating system or for some other reason, then yes, you can still do it. It just takes a little more work. And okay, so here's how to add, let me see if I'm in the right place here, a keyboard shortcut to this or anything that doesn't already have it. See, in the keyboard See where I am? System preferences and then keyboard preferences. And there's a tab here in the middle for shortcuts. And there are some that are already predefined, but if you can find the one you want, whatever it is, and I don't know if there's actually, that might not actually be possible, come to think of it. But if you can find it in the list, let's see, that's a good question. I know how to do it, maybe. Right. Only he wants just a keyboard shortcut like command something or other to lock or unlock the screen. Well, let me try something here. You'll have to bear with me while I do this.
Everything you've got one. This one I haven't figured out how to develop it.
Well, okay, I don't know. Let's try a different. Let's see if I can. Sure. I mean, I've pretty much said what there is to be said anyway.
I've been procrastinating getting 1Password, but when you have that, how does that handle, or is it a complication when there's a box like I am not a robot or a CAPTCHA that you have to put in the letters? How do those sort of programs deal with that?
I don't use that, but I think it just puts in the password.
Sorry, the password managers aren't really smart enough for CAPTCHA.
Right.
So CAPTCHA doesn't interfere with them. Password managers don't try to save it. I think they're programmed to not pay attention to the CAPTCHA field. I think.
You still have to do that yourself.
Yes, as maddening as it is.
Yeah. The little extra work you do is, I think, cheap insurance for the extra security it provides to that account or service. Yes, sir.
Yeah, does anybody know whether they have two factors for federal income tax, state income tax? The reason I ask is the people that prepare our tax material have now asked for two ID. One is either Social Security or something else, and information on some state originated ID number, like driver's license number. Does anybody
I don't know.
heard whether the feds are going to ask for two-factor authentication?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer myself.
I don't know the answer to that, but there is a system set up with the IRS that you can make your estimated payments on, and you have to go through a process where they actually mail you a password in order to complete the setup of that account.
Which is something new this year.
No. We've been doing it for 4
Okay, so I don't know where. What I'm looking for, just so you know, is. I'm sorry. Wait a minute.
Control chip, if you do control chip, that it represents the power in your computer or the eject key at the same time, gonna turn off the session, like taking you out without turning off the computer. I just found it.
Can somebody relay that question to me?
Control chip, eject.
Control and what's the second word? Control?
Chip, the chip
Shift.
key,
Control shift.
and the eject key, the three at the same time.
Oh, that's the shortcut for.
Or the power. If you don't have an eject key, use the power key.
Okay. So, what I was looking for is the app, the little menulet that puts this keychain thing up there for you. And maybe that would, you know, if you had a keychain, if you had a keyboard shortcut for the app, you could, you know, launch it. But I don't know if that'd be quite right anyway. So if that works, there's your answer. There are all these little things that appear in the menu bar. There are really two classes, those that Apple provides and those that don't come from Apple. This machine, I don't see any right now that don't come from Apple. But the Apple ones, I was looking, trying to find real quickly where those things all live. And they're in a folder somewhere buried in the hard drive. And I've seen them before, I just don't quite remember. They're basically little apps that when you run them, they put themselves up here on the menu bar if they're not already there, and then they stay there. You know, and you can easily get rid of one by just dragging it off by holding down the control key. I know you can't see my fingers, but if you just hold it down, you get the menu. If you pull down with the control key down, on the other hand, you'll get this. And it'll give you the chance to, you know, click on the little X or just release it when it's over the desktop and it'll go away. And you put it back just like I did earlier by checking the little box. So,
I wonder, Bruce, if
yeah.
we could turn back to the authentication
Sure.
issue. And
Right.
The question that I have is, what I've noticed is that increasingly apps and websites want to use authentication from the resident app on your phone. So Google was the first service that used this, which is if I'm logging into the Google account, one way of doing it, apart from passwords, is to open the Google app on my phone and say, yes, I want to log in. And I've noticed that with a couple of other sites or apps. Do you think that's a good practice?
Yes, I think I have limited experience with that, but my feeling is that it's probably good. Why? Because of the inherent security of the iPhone or iPad itself in the operating system and the underlying hardware and the way Apple handles everything. There's very little these days that goes between Apple and your device that's not encrypted by default without you even having to think about it. So something like that is almost, and part of that is up to the app writer, the developer, to put into their app, but I'm sure Google would have done that on something that involves authentication. So I don't know for sure, but I would guess that not only is it secure or encrypted, but that it is very secure and strongly encrypted, most likely, to whatever the current high standards are. That, again, that's just my supposition based on observations of the way things go in the tech world and so on. Yeah. Any questions on authentication, two-factor authentication or two-step verification, any of that, how to set it up?
Bruce, thank you so much for this.
You're welcome.
I wonder if we want to just wrap up with how long is the
About 5 minutes.
Yeah, could you do that, Mike? Thanks. This is the TED Talk video that
okay.
Mike was going to. Thanks so much,
Just
Bruce.
leave this here. Or actually, he may. Oh, he's on the other photo. Oh, you want the microphone?
I don't need it, I don't think.
I should take this up.
People say we live in an age of information overload, right? I don't know about that, but I just know that I get too many marketing emails. I got a marketing email from a supermarket firm, which will remain nameless for predominantly legal reasons, but which I'm going to call SafeMart. I got an email from them, and it said, it went like this, it said, just 3 weeks until SafeMart at King's Cross opens. And I resented this, because not only do I not remember signing up to that, but I resent the fact that they appear to think that I should be excited about the shop opening. So what I did is I scrolled down to the bottom of the email and I pressed unsubscribe. I thought that'd be the end of it. But a week later I got another one that said, just 2 weeks until SafeMart at King's Cross opens. And I thought, well, obviously I haven't clicked hard enough, right? So I tried it again, right? Lo and behold, a week passes, you guessed it, just 1 week until SafeMart at King's Cross opens. And here's the problem. The internet gave us access to everything, but it also gave everything access to us. You know, I think, right, it's hard enough to discriminate between the things that genuinely matter in this world and, you know, the minutiae of life without having emails about supermarket chains and Candy Crush saga. And I was really annoyed with them. I thought, okay, I was about to write a strongly worded email, which I can do quite well. And I thought, no, I'm going to find a game. So I replied to it and I said, I literally cannot wait. What do you need from me? They got back to me, this guy called Dan, and said, hi James, I've asked a colleague to help you with your query. Like it needs help. I said, what's the plan, Dan? I'm thinking fireworks, bouncy castle. I'm not sure what you mean. I said, I'm just tremendously excited about the opening. Do you want to put the bouncy castle, or shall I? He said, I think you have misunderstood. A new store is opening, but there is no celebration plan. I said, but what was all the 3 weeks until 2 weeks until emails? I was getting excited! I'm sorry you're disappointed. I said, not to worry. Let's do something anyway. Besides, the deposit on the bouncy castle was non-refundable. If we don't use it, we're out a few £100, Dan. He said, Mr. Beecher, I'm not responsible for anything rewarded. I said, let's not get into who did what. Bottom line, you and I are in this together. Question, will you be there to make sure people take their shoes off? Now, I'll be honest, then my relationship with Dan deteriorated somewhat, because the next email I got was this. Thanks for your email, your case number is... I was outrageous. I said, Dan? And I was just like, this is, I said, Dan! And he just kept going, and I thought, this is terrible, all I'm doing is collecting case numbers. I said, D-Dog? The store is now open. I said, but Dan must have wondered why there was no Nancy Carson. And then we were back to this. And that might have been the end of the story. But I remembered that anything, everything, even something as mundane as getting out of the car, can be fun if you find the right game. So, this is what I replied. And we just, it's like we were dancing. It was such a beautiful relationship. We just kept going. It was nothing. But to be honest, guys, it was quite labour intensive. And, you know, I had other stuff to do, believe it or not. And so what I did is I have a little email auto-replier program. And what I did is I set it up so every time it receives an email from SafeMy, it just pings one back, right? So I set it up and it says, thanks for emailing, the case number is, and then it has a little formula that I wrote to up the case number every time. And I put it on the server and set it running. I'll be honest, guys, then I forgot about it. I checked back on it the other day, and it appears there have been a number of emails going back. We're on 21,400. It gives me an immense sense of satisfaction to know that these computer programs are just going to be pinging one another, you know, for eternity. And as legacies go, I don't think that's bad.
What's this guy's name? His name is James Beach, and that video you saw was the agony of trying to unsubscribe. But he has a bunch of videos, like at least like 4 or 5 of them, like TED Talk style videos that are just hysterical.
Listen, thank you everybody for coming today. As a last word, Bill had printed out a thing about iOS apps are sending out alarming amount of data to Facebook. Most users are unaware. And I have actually an Instagram story to add to this. So Bill, while we didn't have time to actually talk about it, I'll send an email to the announced list just as a follow-up to the meeting and include information about it. So thanks for bringing it to our attention. Yeah. Thanks so much. Thanks everyone for coming today. Thank you. Well, you know, what's good about it is that many of these things are things I've used, but others are not. For example, I've been using RoboCash